So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to cover 7 AR strategies for Meta Facebook marketing. So these are going to be specific AR strategies for each industry, each vertical, each sort of product or service, and you'll be able to see how the AR strategy type basically relates specifically to your industry, and hopefully, get a couple of cogs turning in your mind. And of course, if you've got any questions, then reach out and let me know. But yeah, let's dive straight in. So let's start super simple. Just what is AR? Because with the conversations I've had with people who are fairly familiar with what it is, and then there's some people who don't really understand what it is, or they get confused, or it's sort of coming out along with a lot of other stuff. So AR is really, simply put, it's like upgrading your immediate surroundings or placing objects in there digitally. So the definition is AR is a technology that superimposes a computer-generated image on a user's view of the real world, thus providing a composite view. So obviously that's different to VR, where in VR you're stepping into the space, and then XR, which is basically a combination of AR and VR in between. So you still wear a headset, and you basically have a composite view on top of a sort of VR view. So that is actually quite hard to define, but it's actually, like a mix of the both is probably the best way of putting it. So what is AR in marketing? So in 2021, 100 million consumers were already shopping with AR online and in-store. And then 94 of those were actually more likely to use AR to purchase products in 2022. And this is because AR delivers twice the level of visual attention compared to their non-AR equivalent, leading to improved memories and more powerful responses from consumers. So it's a really, really good way of building instant, connection and building authority with your audience. What are Meta ads, Meta AR ads, and how does it work? So Meta AR ads run, through the normal ads manager, but the actual AR is all created and stored within Spark AR, which is Meta's AR platform essentially. So these are stats from case studies and use cases that we've seen from Meta themselves, and also like replicated within my own case studies. So AR ads versus conventional creative, we see 7 to 9 times engagement rate. And that's really because it's the most immersive ad format that there is. You're able to pull people into the actual ad experience, and it basically means that they'll, you'll leave a lasting impression on them, and there'll be such a strong impression they get, the experience they get from the product, that it just leads to, this really huge engagement rate. The experience time is also longer. So by experience time, I mean, the time that you're experiencing the ad, essentially. So obviously with video views, videos, we see video view ads. Sorry, I'm messing up. With video view ads, we see video views as the experience time. And with AR ads, we see the instant experience being basically the sort of platform, and the way that the metric is actually read out within Ads Manager. So, for videos, we tend to see anywhere between 6 to 30 seconds being the average. And with AR ads within the instant experience, we see up to 50 seconds. So you can obviously understand there that people are spending a lot longer, understanding and learning a bit more about your brand, and, essentially being indoctrinated, lack of a better word, for a longer time. Also, the ads have larger ad real estate as well. So, you can see in a couple of these examples that the actual AR experience takes up the whole camera, as you can see right now. There's basically these huge CTA buttons on there. One of them is to actually take the action you've outlined in the CTA, and then one of them is to take a video or take an image and then share that. So of course that's like much bigger and much more attention grabbing than any other ad. They also tend to convert up to 94 to 97% higher. And this comes from Meta's own case studies. They've got an extensive amount of different case studies, which I definitely recommend you have a look at. Obviously, Snapchat have their own. TikTok ads have been really just started to be a new thing specifically for AR. So have a look at all these case studies. But really, it comes down to the fact that all of these different unique ways of experiencing your product are now available, and you can just rethink the way that creative currently works for you into an AR experience. What is the emotion you want people to take away from it? What's the experience you want them to have? Are they trying it on? Are they seeing it in the space? Or is it adorning them in some way, giving them some sort of unique experience? These things all lead to the higher conversion rate. Additionally, building massive authority with them and also letting them try things on, for example, the things like that is why it leads to a 25 to 40% lower return rate. So obviously people are able to try it on, put it in their space, test it out if it sort of has some utility to it, and that just leads to people, returning and getting less buyer's remorse. And also it's 2 to 3 times lower in terms of the ad inventory cost. And that's because, one, the format is, fairly low competition. Really, it's only sort of competes with other people running instant experiences, and instant experiences tend to be more of a catalog type experience than, with AR. And also, it's all on app engagement. Of course, we all know that Meta prefer people to stay on the platform as long as possible and enjoy it and share it with friends and things like that. So, they definitely prefer it. And you can see from, this little stat at the bottom, Meta invested 10 billion into immersive tech. And this is the real first sort of focus behind this is AR and XR. So that basically means, a lot of people I speak to tend to see this as something sort of down the line. But, these big, huge, global behemoth businesses are all investing billions of dollars into this. They're all creating their own AR glasses. And on that note, it's not a matter of waiting for AR glasses to come out, because you can already see that the adoption is already there. So here's a couple more marketing stats. Augmented reality ads drive social proof because people are 90% more likely to share with their friends and family. It drives revenue, and this is really a big point of the sort of objectives behind AR. You can use it to get people to understand and experience your brand, and make it basically so that they're 20% more likely to purchase products from your brand. And of course, then going on from that, they'll look for that type of experience in the future as a determination of whether or not they're going to trust the brand. Augmented reality also converts customers, and it's not just a matter of using AR to build a list or build awareness. It's really driving sort of direct sales to your e-commerce site. So this obviously, as I said earlier, leads to a 94% to 97% higher conversion rate, basically because people are able to better assess the products and feel a stronger connection to the brand. And last but not least, augmented reality ads builds consumer confidence. So obviously that, the point we just raised on the higher decrease in returns basically means that this $550 billion problem of returns that e-commerce faces, you can really cut a massive chunk out of that if you're using AR. And this can be pre-purchase, and it can also be post-purchase, because you can have a lot that can aid in customer service with AR as well. And we'll go into that in a bit later. So the adoption stats for AR, within this year, we've seen, around 1.1 billion users. This is the predicted model. And that's grown from, 0.4 in 2020, 0.4 in 2019, 0.6 in 2020, and then 0.8. So you can see how the trajectory of the adoption is going to happen. And this has all happened before AR glasses have become a thing. So as I was mentioning earlier, it's not a matter of waiting for glasses to come out for this to be something we use. We're on this thing most of the day. Most people are either, working or they're on their phone. And this is the best, especially, these models, they've been designed to be able to handle AR. They're all putting it into their, all the big phone companies are putting it into their phones and their devices, because they know that this is going to be the first iteration of how AR is adopted, essentially. So here's a purchase journey. I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but you basically get these two sections. You get pre-purchase and post-purchase. Post-purchase is obviously shorter, but it's really, there's so much juice there that you can use AR for, and I sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier. But yeah, there's all of these different ways of using it, and of course within the landing page or the product page itself, and also the checkout. You can have AR checkouts. So there was a teaser for an app on Shopify where you're able to use the AR experience to let people have a try-on effect or a plain tracking effect, and we'll go through the different types of AR in a minute, to basically experience the product, and then they could check straight out from the actual AR experience. So it's not a matter of then going to a product page, then deciding what size, then this, and this. You're literally cutting it straight down to jump into the AR experience and then buy. That's really cutting it short. Of course, you can use influencers, and then influencers can share it with their list, and then they can have a special discount code or things like that, and then it can have this massive compounding sort of viral effect. Obviously, the on-platform stuff we've delved into quite a bit. You can also use your AR experience as a link, which people can get into from your lists, from your messenger, from your email. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you pay to to pay to play. This is as much organic as it is paid. And then of course, yeah, the the post purchase product AR experiences are mainly used for giving people instructions or a manual, or adding some exclusivity element to it, so people who purchase the product get access to this game or this discount or some sort of unique experience. So here's the different types of AR. So really, there's a couple of schools of thought on this. There's either the marker-based or the markerless-based, and there's also location and projected. But some people believe that location and projected are part of the markerless, because marker basically means that the AR fires upon tracking of a predetermined marker, whereas markerless, they use all these different ways, plane tracking, location tracking, and then the projected is quite futuristic, really, because it obviously needs projectors. But these are basically the four types of AR that we'll cover, apart from the projected, as that does require a lot of hardware. So here's the AR ad capabilities. So AR experiences, their types can actually then be further broken down to formats like these. And of course, this is not the total list. This is just a few of the list of the examples I want to show and take you through in a minute. The ones that we've seen, the use cases we've seen. But of course, there's a lot of different ways you can use it depending on what your brand is, and what your product is, and what your service is, and how you can actually give people value and give people a unique experience. But of course, I wanted to go through these because these are going to be a really good way of you seeing a specific example for your specific brand or vertical. So these are really the main types, and we'll go through them one by one. So first of all, you have face filters. These are the most commonly seen. Of course, we've seen Snapchat, we've seen Instagram, we've also seen TikTok now using AR, and these tend to be the ones that we see. And this is probably what people see the most of, and that's what they think of when they think of AR. So it's basically more cosmetic based. You're sort of upgrading your appearance in some way, and you're adding elements of color, something like that, some background elements, or something that's going to sort of upgrade your look, or even downgrade, depending on how it is. And these are most commonly used for these verticals. So obviously cosmetic, makeup, skincare, hair, jewelry, accessories, headwear, tattoos, glasses, health supplements, food, and beverage. So I've seen examples of all of these basically, but I couldn't squeeze them all on because it would just be madness. So I've just given you these two examples of Sephora, and then there was a creator within Spark AR created this other one as well. And you'll notice there's QR codes as well, so you can actually just scan them and have a look yourself and try them out, test them out. So yeah, this is really interesting because you see with the Sephora one, it's the whole palette. So you're able to actually interact with the palette, and you can test out these different sort of color combinations. And of course, it's this Anastasia Beverly Hills collection. So number two, face filters are also good for melting face experiences. So number two is the world effect. So this tends to be more back-facing camera. Face filters are more front-facing, obviously seeing yourself. But the back camera sort of elements of this are that you can see it within your space. So on the right, we see an example from IKEA with, just to visualize how this would look within your space, what you can fit in there. You can see it like all coming together, because obviously that's like IKEA's whole thing, is that you can just make it yourself with little engineering knowledge, practical DIY elements of it. So of course they wanted to bring that in, and it's just a really effective way of using world effect filters. The one on the left is a gallery, and it basically takes you through. There's an audio recording. Of course, I couldn't put audio on this, but there's an audio recording of each different art piece, and you can learn a little bit more about them. And you can cycle through them. You can basically have the gallery essentially within your space. You can just try it out yourself. And this could be really good for people within that space, of a way of promoting the gallery themselves, of pulling people in to get into the actual gallery. Or, of course, during COVID, it was a really good way of continuing to build that fan base and let people have that experience. So here's a commonly used verticals and sort of industries for these, but of course, they're not limited to that at all. So trial filters, this is another very commonly known filter. And this basically means that you're able to do full body try-ons, and of course you can just do them on your head as well. And the way that it differs from face filters is because you're essentially putting a digital element onto yourself, whereas face filter is a little bit different. It's more you're sort of upgrading your appearance, or adjusting your physical appearance in some way. So you can see how they're like slightly different there. And of course, like try-on filters can actually be a total body thing. It could be apparel, it can be cosmetics, jewelry, accessories, headwear. Again, like quite similar sort of verticals. But as you can see, from the Gap example on the right, you can have a little bit of a sort of gamey, funny element to it, because of course this was a jacket they brought out like at winter time in 2020, 2019, probably 2019. And it's quite cool sort of, with the paper bag there as well. So gaming filters, these are super exciting, and there's a massive sort of virality to this. So you see the one on the right is obviously, we all know this Squid game. You probably played this without even realizing that this was absolutely amazingly. As a guy from within Spark AR has his own studio and created this, mainly for fun, but it reached 500 million impressions organically, which is absolutely incredible if you think about how much that would cost within ads. And of course, you could say it's not really doing anything, but it's promoting his services, like what he's able to create and the fun that you can have from it. And that's a really good example of gaming. And of course, you can use it in all these different ways. And then you see on the left here, we have McDonald's. So, it's like a catch all this food in your mouth game. And you can have sort of elements of this gaming experience for people to get incentivized in some way, or they can win discounts, or it's a really good way of drawing people to a certain place, because I put, shopping in there, streaming platforms, movies, festivals, events. And there's an element of in-person that you could do with this. You could have people going to a certain part of the mall, for example, and playing this game. So, there's a lot you can do here. So these two are both like tracking types. So there's plane tracking, and we'll go through target tracking as well. And plane tracking really it's not using anything, any marker-based tracking. Basically, it's not looking for a specific predetermined sort of design or anything to track the AR. Basically, essentially what it's doing is it's using the floor or the table or walls, and it sort of can determine from that where to activate. And it's very accurate. And actually now you can even have the actual digital element of the AR experience come behind things. So for example, you put your hand in front, your hand would be in front as if it's actually physically there. Whereas that was actually recently updated, because before you couldn't do that. It would just go through your hand essentially. So it's, it's really, really progressing. And it can be really powerful if you imagine you have someone on their laptop on your store, and then they can have this element of have the sneakers just pop out in front of them, and you can look at them and interact with them and see how they look. So very, very powerful. And plane tracking can also be used for real estate, which is very interesting because that sort of avenue for that industry is getting really big. And really what you're doing is you're putting the space within your space. So we'll cover portal filters in a minute, and it's slightly different. But what you can essentially have is you can have the room within your room, and you can be experiencing, a new apartment, a new house, something like that, and you could sort of put it within your space. So really, really powerful. Target tracking. So this can be used for adding a sort of interactive element on clothing. It could also be used in all these different ways. But you can see by the example here with the hat, you've got the little character on the middle of the hat, the Joker, spinning around, little cheeky face and stuff like that. And this could be really cool for things like NFTs as well. I've included them in here because you can basically have, some digital element of it tracking the an element of the NFT or a QR code or a design or something, and then you can have some, as I said, like some utility to it. So target tracking can be really good. And then here's portals. So these are actually my favorite. And this is an example from a watch brand where you essentially create a portal and step in. So if you're familiar with Rick and Morty, if you imagine you're Rick and you have the portal gun, but the portal gun is your phone, and you're essentially putting this wormhole, and then you're going into it. And the way brands can use this, and the way this brand has used it, is to create essentially their own metaverse, like a small version of it, and you can go in and you can experience their brand. Obviously you could put products in there. You could almost make it like a shop, and it's giving people this lasting experience of what they could. I guess there's a lot of hype and misunderstanding about metaverse. So what you could basically be doing with this is saying like, this is what the metaverse is going to look like, and it shows you a bit more cutting edge and a bit more ahead of the curve and things like that. And you can leave a really good lasting impression with people. So very powerful. And yeah, as I put that's sort of down the bottom of this list here, outdoor and travel, things like that, really, really powerful for this. So I've seen a really good example. I haven't included it on this, but you can basically step into a portal, and the portal takes you to a campsite. And on the campsite, there's all these products from this camping store. And you can look and you can sort of imagine, okay, this would be really cool to have this and this and this, and then you can imagine your perfect camping trip all through the portal. So there's a really good example of it. So, I alluded to a little bit to the post-purchase AR experience. Obviously, there's the experience you're having before buying a product, but this, as I said, like helping to ease a lot of issues with buyer's remorse and people not understanding how to use a product to its greatest, and having some sort of interactive element. You can see these guys who basically provide, like recipes and things like that. There's a really cool interactive element to it. And there can even be a recipe element to the AR. You could almost like show people how to cook. And, it's a really cool, unique way of getting people to get more value out of your product, essentially. So it can be anything from adding interactive element to product displaying to providing instructions for how to use a product. And of course, that's a huge one, because people get stuff and they're like, I don't really know how to use this, especially if it's, utility based. So, it can be a really, really cool way of skipping people contacting customer service. So here's a really good example of a really specific strategy that they've used. So this is using the target tracking. So obviously it's tracking the actual outline of the bottle and some of the elements of the label, but it's giving you this video and this whole seaside experience, which is helping you. What their mission really was to help people understand sustainability and plastics in the ocean, this whole issue, and they're trying to do their part by making their products a lot more eco-friendly and so forth. So it's a really, really powerful way of not only educating people but helping your product stand out, and again, like giving it extra value on top of it. So yeah, there's a load of really cool examples there. Obviously, if you have any questions, just ping me, just leave a comment, or just reach out to my Facebook or reach out to me on LinkedIn. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a free interactive workshop, and we're probably going to do this quite regularly. We'll first start doing it at the end of this month. And what we'll do is come to this URL below, tell us who you are and a little about your product. And what we'll do is we'll find a specific example and a specific strategy in terms of an augmented reality ad for your product, and then we'll talk you through like how it would work, and what the next steps would be, basically, if you're looking to try and take advantage of this. And it's completely free. There's no obligation there. It's just, for us, it's just a really good learning experience, a way of us flexing our strategic muscle and our creative muscle. So yeah, drop in to that link, and yeah, just go through the 7 questions and just submit there, and then we'll let you know when the workshop will be. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. I really hope this gave you some amazing ideas. Catch you later.